In the words of Aerosmith, we're back in the saddle again. We're on the Nissan Altima. The parts came in. Now, I think in our last video I said that I wanted to replace the lock solenoid first to see, if that alleviated our condition. That was a dormant solenoid that was in it, and when I spoke to the customer, he said regardless of what the problem is, to change both of them. So, for the sake of experiment, I wanted to do the one. However, I was concerned with the fact that the engine gets smoldering hot. We've got to get up to 140 degrees according to service info before we even know if the variable valve timing can function. Where the VVT for the intake cam is, it's kind of a piss pot to get to, and I didn't want to burn my little fingers. I changed both of them because that's what I was going to ultimately do, so we may never know which one had actually failed. Now, when they're cold, they both function. And that was what I experienced yesterday, even driving the car. It didn't fail until, I got the engine hot, drove it a while, let it sit, and then all of a sudden, boop, oh, wait a minute here, now it's acting up. So I tested them both on the bench. They both open and close. Checked them with the power probe, click, 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 click. You hear them snapping and popping open, and you can watch the plunger move. We're going to turn the key on. Now, I put them both in. I want to see if service data is correct in the sense that does it do what it tells us it does? Does the lock solenoid energize to send oil pressure to it, to keep the cam phaser locked and limit the VVT from actually advancing or retarding the cam? That's service info said that. I've got our scope. I just put it on the auto because I'm going to drive the car, or perhaps we'll just even let it warm up. So our channel A, which is going to be on this scope, it's going to be our orange trace, is going to be the lock, and I had to label them because I got them dragged under the hood. And channel B, our green trace, is variable valve timing. So what I've read is when this car starts, the lock solenoid should engage. So we're going to start it. So our orange trace is showing duty cycle controlled. And from what I read, that should stay like that until 140 degrees. It wants to keep that camshaft locked. Now, I know this looks like just a bunch of mumbo jumbo on the screen. We can change the time base here. Now, this scope is not very fast. Let's see. Okay, but it's fast enough. So we can see our orange trace, variable valve timing lock, is being duty cycled to send oil pressure to that cam phaser to keep it in the lock position. So now we can change our scope time back. Now that you know what that looks like, we're just going to look at it on the bigger picture. So this should inhibit any VVT action from happening on our green trace. Our cam should be in what they call the intermediate lock phase. And while that's running in the background, I'm going to hop in the scan tool here. We're going to get it hooked up with the car and see if when we hit 140 degrees, does it indeed unlock like it says it should? And more importantly, do we have control of it at that point without the engine running like poo? I think in the last video, we tried to control it and we had no control of it. When I drove the car, it was just super erratic, stalling, running like crap. And I don't remember if I got any of that in the first part or not. So this is a 13 Altima according to this. And we're going to go to the control unit, we're going to go to engine, we're going to look at data, coolant temp more particularly, and we're going to let it sit here and run. Now I did start it cold. I guess we can't leave that down, we got music playing out there. We'll get up the coolant temp data pid, and when we get close to that mark, we'll go back to the scope to see if that lock nixes itself. Let's see, I'll get some live data. Once I get this, I'll show you guys where we're at here. I guess we'll go main signals. I just want to know how the system works more for my own knowing. I know what service data says. Coolant temp, here we are. So there's our coolant temp, 129, 130. Once that goes up another peg, we're going to pop right back into our scope. Actually, you know what? Yeah, it's at 133. Let's pop back into our scope just so we don't miss the event. I don't know if this... Oh, okay, this keeps my scaling. That's handy. That's good to know. So we're going to see. We still have a heat shield rattling underneath it. So let's put this on a little bit more time. We'll do 5 seconds per division. And we'll watch that come across, and I assume at 140 we're going to watch that orange trace, the lock solenoid, is going to turn off. and allow our camshaft, our variable valve timing, to take place. Heat shield's awful annoying. So I'll leave this sit like this. As soon as that happens, I'll bring you guys back. Well, that wasn't long. There we are. We see it shut off. And its action there, oops, let me pause this. How do you pause it? Hit stop and hit back. So we see here the lock solenoid turned off, and I guess prior to turning off, if I remember right, when I was reading in scan or in service data, it says that it will toggle the VVT to move because it removes pressure from the lock pin. So it's got the two lock pins that go in it. It releases one and then it releases the other, but to do that, it moves the VVT to take the tension off it. So I'm assuming that's what happened there. Now, if we let this play through, nothing should really be happening right now. Our control side for the variable valve timing lock is off. You know, we just have power on it. It's not being pulled to ground. So essentially, we should be able to go in with the scan tool now and control this and actually get some function from it. So we'll do that. And then we'll go back into data and we can see, you know, obviously I've been sitting here chattering, but we're at 150 whatever degrees. So we did make it to our mark. So I'm going to go back in some bidirectional stuff here. So we're in the bidirectional control. Pick out the data we want to see. All right. We will hit go. And I think it's supposed to be greater than 2,000 RPMs, I thought it said, but we'll see if we can see what kind of change. We're commanding it at a 1 degree change right now. All right. And then I don't know. Let's get a little more time on here. Okay, so we're commanding it at 2 degrees, and we have 2 degrees of movement. Now I don't know if both these data PIDs are the same, but we have 2 degrees of movement there. Let's see, and then we come up, go up to 3 degrees. Now I think there probably is some tolerance there, you know, perhaps for like a half a degree. And then we'll go up to 4. And up to 5. And I'm keeping the throttle prop just a little bit there. And then we can see that we're hitting our target. So that's good. That's much better than we had yesterday, I'll tell you that. Let's go back to the scope here. Let's get some more time on here. We should be able to see it change when we rev it up now. So we see the command. You know, we don't see the change, but we see the command. So I'm going to take this thing for a ride. I think for that we'll take and clear the codes out of it just so we can make sure that we don't have any issues. Oops. Whoa, fella. I don't know what that button does. Remotely control this device. We don't want to do that. We're going to clear the codes out of it. Probably some codes that we've created also. I'm going to take it for a shake now that it's fully warmed up. So I pulled up our graph. I got our tumbler position so we can look at that. I don't remember the theory on that as to when that engaged. But we can see our cam timing here. I suppose we could pull this up into a graph also. And we can see where duty cycled controlled that on. So I'm going to go for a ride. Let's see, nobody's behind this. We'll go out and we'll VTEC. We gotta come back and put all this stuff back under the hood. Oh yeah! She just pulled some cam timing on us right there. Then we can see, hopefully you guys can see, that functioned. I would have to look at the theory and operation on our intake manifold tuning valve. Now this has 2 different intake valves, intake tuning valves, runner control valve. It has one that will change it from the short intake runners, 2 long intake runners, and then it also has this the flaps right up at the intake. The ones that we checked, one of the systems is monitored, the other one is not. So just FYI, that's why I saw 2 motors on there. That's one of the things I was concerned with. Why do we show 2 intake tuning valve motors, but only 1 position sensor? So a little research into that revealed that answer. We got some serious VTEC right there. Watch that intake cam advance. Nice. Tumbler has not moved. I don't know what you guys can see. I'll try to hold that up there and not die. Really wish I wasn't such a Sally and we could have just done one of that lock solenoid. I'd be willing to bet the old Dorman one was garbage. Who's texting me? I'd look, but I'm driving. Whoa, back on the road, fella. So on my test drive I did, coming into town there, I was hammering around the throttle a couple times and just showing that it is functioning, so we can see our, you know, our duty cycle control. You know, what we were seeing on our scope, it's saying, hey, turn on, you know, 36%, which translated to, you know, 9.5 degrees in this case. And I kind of just cruise in and whack the throttle again, and you know, it goes up 9.5 degrees, and commanding it, you know, at 30-some%. So that's that. It appears to work. Car runs good now. We can hit that VTEC. We'll pop back out. Our scope should still be running. I'm always hitting the wrong freaking button. So our scope's still running. We can see the command. We can see that it works. And we could also see that the lock worked as it says it does. When that lock is commanded off, when that lock solenoid is turned off, which it is right now, it has the ability to move the cams. So if you get one of these in, I would say if it's not moving the camshaft, either, you know, put both solenoids in it like I did. You know, of course, after you check controls and stuff like that. We could have pulled it out hot yesterday and seen which one of those was not working. And it was not working when it was hot. So we could, you know, screw with it, heat them up and stuff. But frankly, they're pretty inexpensive. I got them both from Nissan, and the beauty of it is all 3 of them on this car are the same. So you just need to order a solenoid, and it fits all 3 positions. So, but yes, VVT is not functioning. It could be the lock solenoid, or it could be the VVT solenoid, or bad phaser, or broken wire, or bad ECM. Lots of things. All right, folks, so we'll leave it at that. I'm going to put the kibbles and bits back under the hood, get my wires back out of there. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully we now have a little better understanding of the system. I do. And that was my main reason for going back on it and actually looking at the signal. Because I didn't see in scan data where I could see the data PID for the lock. What I do want to do, sorry to keep sidetracking, I want to make sure we didn't set any codes, just to be on the safe side. I don't know why it threw a code for that tumbler, intake tuning valve, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, we've got no codes. I am going to take and try to attempt to run a drive cycle on this before the end of the day, just so I feel a little more comfortable. I don't remember where I was going with that. Oh, yeah, I wanted to see how that functioned. I know service data said one thing, but sometimes service data and actual data you collect doesn't coincide. In this case, it did, so I'm happy with it. If we had more time and I wasn't getting paid to fix cars, I certainly would have put just the lock solenoid in it, drove it, seen what happened. If I took care of it, great. Like I said, the customer wanted to do both of them. Wishing I would have popped them out yesterday while they were hot, but hindsight's 20/20. I'm gonna move on. Why don't you guys move on down there to the comment box, leave a question, comment, criticism, concern, subscribe, ring that bell. And just remember, viewers, if I can do it, you can do it. Thanks for watching.